At my husband's grandfather's funeral, my MIL whispered, "Don't get your hopes up. This family protects what's theirs." 2 days later, I opened the will to find my name listed on every property in his estate. Turns out he'd loved me like a daughter. When they confronted me screaming, I just said, "He chose who actually showed up. You chose brunch." I met Cody in the most unexpected way at a gas station off Route 29 in Virginia. It was one of those hot summer days where the air felt like soup. His truck had a flat, and I was there getting gas. I didn't know a thing about changing tires, but I offered to help anyway. He laughed, I laughed, and somehow we figured it out together. We grabbed burgers afterward. That was the beginning. 6 months later, we were married. Cody was easy to love. Kind, funny, the type of guy who would stop to help an old lady cross the street. But his family? Not so much. The Nichols family was old Virginia money, not rich in the flashy way, but land rich. They owned farms, buildings, rentals. All of it tied to one man, Walter Nichols, Cody's grandfather. Walter was the real deal. He built everything from the ground up. His kids and grandkids circled him like hawks, always smiling in front of him, but grumbling behind his back. They all wanted what he had. I met Walter a month into dating Cody. I was scared. He had these sharp eyes that made you feel like he could see through you. He didn't say much at dinner, just watched. But after Cody went to the bathroom, Walter leaned over and said, "He loves you. Don't let this family change you." From that moment, something shifted. Over the years, Walter and I got close. Closer than I was with my own dad. He'd call me to come over and help with paperwork. I'd bring him lunch, sit with him during doctor appointments, even learned how to prune his rose bushes the way he liked. Cody's mom, Melanie, never did any of that. None of them did. The rest of the family thought I was just playing nice. But I wasn't. I genuinely liked Walter. We had this understanding. He respected people who showed up, who worked, who didn't expect things just because of blood. And that's what I did. I showed up. 3 weeks ago, Walter passed away. Stroke. Sudden. It hit me hard. Harder than I expected. We were called to the funeral in Madison County. Small church, simple ceremony. I cried the whole time. Melanie didn't shed a single tear. She wore this light champagne suit like she was going to brunch with her girlfriends, not burying her father. After the service, people were eating sandwiches and talking. That's when Melanie came over. She leaned in, fake smile, voice cold as ice. "Don't get your hopes up," she said. "This family protects what's theirs." I stared at her, too stunned to reply. But inside, I knew something she didn't. 2 days later, we were all sitting in the lawyer's office. Melanie looked smug, Cody's brother looked bored, and I just sat quiet in the corner. The lawyer pulled out a folder and started reading Walter's will. I'll never forget the way his voice sounded. "To my children," he read, "you each receive $25,000 in trust." Everyone stiffened. That wasn't the big money they were expecting. Then he continued. "To my granddaughter-in-law, the only one who visited me without needing something, the only one who sat with me when no one else did, I leave all real estate holdings and assets." Every eye turned to me. Walter had left me everything. The land, the rental properties, the commercial buildings. All of it. Every title had already been changed. It was done before he died. No one could fight it. The silence in that room was deafening. Then Melanie exploded. "This is fraud. She manipulated him. This isn't fair." Cody's brother jumped up, knocked over a chair. People were crying, yelling, shouting over each other. The lawyer kept repeating that it was legal, witnessed, notarized, and filed. There was no contest. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. "He chose who actually showed up. You chose brunch." I walked out before they could respond. After the will reading, everything shifted. Cody didn't say much in the car ride home. He kept his eyes on the road, knuckles white around the steering wheel. I was waiting for him to explode like the rest of them, but he stayed quiet. Too quiet. That night, he didn't come to bed. I found him sleeping on the couch, still in his funeral clothes. By the next morning, the calls started. Melanie, Cody's aunt, even some second cousin I'd never met. All of them calling him, not me. And every time I walked into the room, he'd stop talking, lower his voice, or walk away. It didn't take a genius to know they were working on him. A week later, Cody sat me down at the kitchen table. His eyes were bloodshot. Look, I know what my grandpa did. And I get that you were close. But it's not right, babe. That land? That's our family's. You can't just keep all of it. I stared at him for a long time. You mean I can't keep it? He looked down, couldn't meet my eyes. They're hurting, he muttered. You don't understand. That land's been in our name for generations. No, I said. It was in Walter's name. And Walter made his choice. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. The next day, I got a letter taped to my car windshield at the grocery store. No return address. Just bold, ugly handwriting. You think this is over? We protect our own. Then came the fake calls to the zoning board. Anonymous complaints about code violations on the rental property I now owned. Then a tax audit. Then a visit from Child Protective Services even though we didn't have kids. One thing after another, all designed to stress me out, wear me down. But I didn't back off. I hired a lawyer. I got security cameras installed on every property. I changed all the locks. I transferred management of the rentals to a company out of Richmond, one that didn't flinch when I said, yes, it's a family dispute. No, I'm not backing down. Cody was slipping away. Each day, he talked less, slept less, and stayed out later. One night, he came home drunk and dropped his phone. I picked it up. There were texts from Melanie. Melanie, don't worry. We'll get it all back soon. Cody, she's cracking. Just a matter of time. My stomach turned. I didn't confront him right away. I waited. I started documenting everything. Screenshots. Dates. Every phone call. Every fake complaint. I even started recording conversations with my lawyer. Then, a week later, Cody didn't come home. He moved in with his mom. And just like that, I was the villain in their story. The outsider. The thief. The gold digger. I heard it all through the grapevine. But Walter had taught me something important. You don't let people steal what you earned just because they feel entitled to it. They didn't know I had one more thing. A letter. Walter's last letter to me. Not the one from the will. This one was personal. He'd given it to his lawyer with instructions to deliver it after the estate was settled. I opened it the day Cody left. Inside was a note. If they come for you, show them this. I kept records. Let them try. He'd left me a USB drive. And what was on it? Well, let's just say Walter had been keeping more than land deeds. The USB drive sat on my kitchen counter for 2 days before I worked up the nerve to plug it in. Part of me was scared of what I might find, scared it might be nothing, scared it might be everything. But late one night, after another call from a blocked number and another busted pipe at one of the properties, sabotage, I was sure of it, I poured myself a glass of wine, sat at my laptop, and opened the folder labeled Family. It was all there. Emails, bank transfers, photos, documents Walter had scanned and saved, years of records. Melanie had been siphoning money from the family trust for over a decade. Fake invoices from non-existent contractors. Overpriced maintenance bills for properties she didn't even own. Walter had known. He had proof. He'd been tracking it all. There were even records of land she'd tried to secretly transfer into her name, deals that never went through because Walter stopped them at the last second. The woman who whispered, "This family protects what's theirs," had been stealing from her own father. For years. But that wasn't the biggest shock. There were emails between Cody and his uncle going back 6 months before Walter's death. Plans. Discussions. Talk about how if Grandpa croaks soon, they'd split the land before she can sink her claws in. They called me a leech. A placeholder. Someone to keep the old man soft while they waited for him to die. And then this, from Cody to his mom. Don't worry, even if he puts her on the will, I'll talk her out of it. She's easy to guilt. She still thinks this is about love. I sat there staring at the screen until my wine got warm. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, I made 4 copies of the drive. One I gave to my lawyer. One went into a safe deposit box. The other 2? One for backup, one for leverage. I waited for them to make another move. And they did. Cody's uncle filed a lawsuit. Claimed undue influence. Said I tricked a dying old man into giving me land that wasn't mine. It was a joke of a case, but it was public and they knew I hated attention. The town papers picked it up. I started getting dirty looks at the grocery store. People stopped answering my calls. Tenants got spooked. That's when I dropped the first bomb. I had my lawyer send a letter to the entire Nichols family. A simple letter. 1 page. Just a few lines. Attached to it was a redacted screenshot of the embezzlement evidence. Just enough to make the message clear. Settle the case. Walk away, or I go to the IRS. No response for 2 days. Then Cody called. You went too far, he said, voice tight, like he was barely holding it together. You don't know what you're messing with. Neither do you, I said. You still think I'm the same girl from that gas station. He didn't call again. But Melanie did. This time, she didn't whisper. She showed up at my door, unannounced, dressed like she was going to church. She pushed past me without waiting for an invite. You think you're smart? She hissed. You think you're going to tear this family apart and walk away clean? I'm not the one who tore it apart, I said. I'm just the one holding the flashlight. She laughed, but it was forced. Dry. Her hands were shaking. You'll regret this, she said. Then she stormed out. But I already did regret something, trusting Cody. Loving a man who looked me in the eye for years while planning to cut me out of everything the second he thought I was no longer useful. And I wasn't done yet. It all came crashing down 3 weeks later. The Nichols family thought I would fold under pressure. That I'd back off, beg for forgiveness, or maybe offer to share what Walter left me just to keep the peace. They were wrong. I'd sent the warning. I gave them a chance. But they didn't take it. So I followed through. My lawyer and I filed a report with the IRS. Full documentation. Timeline. Names. Transfers. Everything Walter had stored on that USB drive. And once the feds got involved, it moved fast. Melanie was audited first. Then Cody's uncle. Then a wave of subpoenas hit the rest of them like a storm. They tried to claim the documents were fake. They weren't. Walter had been smart. He had original signatures, notarized records, even recorded conversations with contractors who confirmed they never did the work Melanie had paid for. The IRS didn't just look at their books. They looked at mine, too. I got dragged through it just like the rest of them. It was hell. Every expense I'd ever made tied to the properties was under a microscope. I spent nights crying into spreadsheets, wondering if Walter had left me a gift or a curse. Turns out it was both. The audit cleared me. I was clean. And the rest of them? Melanie was hit with tax fraud and embezzlement. Over $600,000 in misused funds. Cody's uncle? Another $200,000. Both of them got indicted. Melanie took a deal. She gave up her house, her car, and a massive chunk of her retirement to stay out of prison. Cody's uncle wasn't so lucky. He's doing time. And Cody? He came crawling back after the indictment hit. Claimed he'd been manipulated. Said he didn't know how deep it went. That he'd never meant to hurt me. I was scared, he said. I didn't want to lose everything. I looked him in the eyes and said, "You already did." I filed for divorce the next morning. It wasn't clean. He tried to fight for part of the estate, but Walter's will was ironclad, and the fact that Cody had conspired with his family to defraud me didn't help his case. The judge sided with me. He walked away with nothing but his clothes and the used Ford truck he drove in on. He moved back in with his mom, What was left of her house, anyway? It took a long time to rebuild. My name was dragged through mud in that town. People said I tore a family apart, that I was greedy, cold, ruthless. But what they didn't see were the nights I stayed up with Walter when he was too weak to eat. The times I changed his sheets when he was sick. The days I spent learning his business, asking questions he wished his own children had asked. The times I cried for him after he died, real tears. Not the ones they faked for the funeral. I didn't steal the Nichols legacy. I earned it. And when they screamed at me, demanded to know how I could live with myself, I told them the truth. He chose who actually showed up. You chose brunch. And they never showed up again.